What's up, rock warriors? Welcome back to WoodsRock, the place where legends never die and the amplifiers never get turned down. I'm about to take you on a journey through the 13 most spine-tingling, goosebump-raising guitar riffs that have ever blessed our eardrums. These aren't just riffs, people. These are the sounds that made teenagers lock themselves in garages, made parents bang on bedroom doors, and turned quiet kids into absolute maniacs with air guitars. So crank up your speakers, because we're diving deep into the DNA of rock and roll itself. Johnny B. Goode, Chuck Berry, 1958. The riff that started it all. You want to know where the gods of rock threw down the first lightning bolt? This is it. Chuck Berry didn't just play the guitar. He unleashed it. That opening riff on his Gibson ES-350 isn't just catchy. It's cosmic. It's the big bang of rock and roll. The precise moment when rhythm met rebellion and never looked back. This riff was so fundamentally powerful, NASA beamed it into deep space on the Voyager Golden Record, essentially telling the universe, "Yo, aliens, this is Earth, and yeah, we rock hard." Every single riff you've ever loved, every band that ever made you raise your fist, it all started here. Chuck didn't just inspire a generation. He lit a fuse that's still burning hot today. But here's the real story, the one that makes this riff more than just music. It was the riff that broke down racial barriers. Chuck Berry didn't just invent a sound. He smuggled the genius of black rhythm and blues into white America's living rooms. That iconic lick is an electrified, sped-up version of Louis Jordan's Jump Blues, but with a dangerous new edge. In the segregated 50s, radio stations had color lines, but this riff was so undeniable, it blasted right through them. Kids who'd never met a black person were air guitaring to a black man's genius, and it changed everything. And let's be real, without Berry's legendary duck walk and showmanship, there's no Hendrix, no Prince, no rock star as we know it. He laid the blueprint for everything that came after. Fun fact, the riff was so ahead of its time, Berry himself stole it. From himself. He recycled it from his earlier track, Ain't That Just Like a Woman? Even legends have to reuse their magic. So, hail to the Godfather. Hail to the riff that didn't just start a genre, it started a revolution. You really got me. The Kinks, 1964, the riff that invented DIY. Dave Davies was a straight-up mad scientist. Dude took a razor blade to his amp. And I'm not kidding, that's a true story. To unleash a fuzzy, snarling riff that screamed, "Rules? What rules?" Built on gritty GFC power chords, this riff is pure teenage defiance. It's the sound of slamming your bedroom door and cranking the volume while your mom yells about homework. This is the spark that lit the fuse for garage rock and punk. Absolute chaos, and we love it. But the real magic of this riff is that it invented the DIY punk ethos before punk even existed. With no money for fancy gear, Davies proved that a razor blade and a pissed-off attitude could birth a distortion sound that engineers absolutely hated. Studio pros called it a mistake, but Ray Davies fought to keep it raw. This wasn't just a sound, it was a philosophy. This riff didn't just inspire The Clash and Van Halen, it proved that imperfection could be revolutionary. Hidden drama. Imagine this. The Kinks manager allegedly hired a young session guitarist named Jimi Page to re-record it, though Page has always denied it. What if that secret got out in '64? It would have been rock and roll's biggest scandal. I Can't Get No Satisfaction, The Rolling Stones, 1965. The riff from a dream. Keith Richards literally dreamt this riff, woke up, and recorded it half asleep. That's right, this anthem for restless souls came straight from a nap. 'Cause I tried, and I tried, Armed with a Gibson Maestro FC1 fuzz-tone pedal, Keith turned a simple lick into the definitive sound of a generation flipping the bird at the status quo. When that riff hits, it's not just music. It's a declaration. The Stones didn't just play rock, they lived it. But the story behind the riff is even better. It was so radical that Mick Jagger hated it at first. The band's own record label initially refused to release it, calling it too garage for pop radio. Here's the twist. The riff's raw, fuzzy repetition was the entire point. It was a musical mirror of the consumer culture and the monotony that Jagger mocked in the lyrics. The very thing the execs feared, its unpolished, robotic grind, is what made it a middle finger to the polished, factory-made pop music of the era. Bonus lore. That iconic riff was inspired by Martha and the Vandellas' Nowhere to Run. So it went from Motown to the Stones, and then straight into a global revolution. Purple Haze, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, 1967. The riff from another dimension. Jimi Hendrix didn't just bend strings, he bent reality. The opening riff of Purple Haze hits like a UFO crash landing in your mind. That freaky E7 sharp 9 chord, now nicknamed the Hendrix chord, sounds like the laws of music being rewritten in real time. It's fuzzy, disorienting, and absolutely electric. You don't just hear this riff, you hallucinate it. And here's the twist. Hendrix didn't invent that chord. He borrowed it from Nashville R&B cats, then blasted it into the stratosphere. What was once a jazzy, oddball voicing became a cosmic war cry. He even said the wah-wah wasn't for flash. It was to mimic a crying baby, a sound that felt alive, human, haunting. And maybe that's Hendrix's real magic. He didn't play the guitar, he reprogrammed it. He showed us that 6 strings and an amp could become a spaceship. Purple Haze all in your brain? Yeah, and it's never quite left. Whole Lotta Love, Led Zeppelin, 1969. The riff that made thunder. Woman, I ain't fooling. I'm gonna send you. Jimmy Page didn't just write a riff. He conjured a primal beast. That slinky bluesy eruption on his Les Paul, cranked through a Marshall stack, is pure, unfiltered swagger. It's got more sex appeal than a James Bond flick, and hits harder than a freight train. This riff doesn't ask for your love. It demands it, then leaves you begging for more. Zeppelin built a stairway to heaven, but this riff is the highway to hell, in the best way. But here's the dirty little secret. The riff was actually stolen, or at least heavily borrowed. It's a direct lift from Willie Dixon's You Need Love, a song famously recorded by Muddy Waters. Led Zeppelin eventually settled the lawsuit out of court. But here's the kicker. Jimmy Page improved it. Dixon's version was bluesy. Zeppelin's was primal. The band's own vocalist, Robert Plant, once admitted in an interview, Page's riff was Page's riff. It was there before anything else. I just thought, well, what am I gonna sing? That was it. A nick. Now happily paid for. He confessed to nicking the lyrics, but insisted that the guitar riff was all Jimmy Page's original work. This is a crucial point, because while the lyrics were borrowed, the guitar riff itself is distinctly different from the original, and arguably 1,000 times more powerful. Studio trick. Page recorded the riff in a stairwell for natural reverb. No fancy plugins, just architectural genius. Paranoid, Black Sabbath, 1970, The Three-Fingered Revolution. Tony Iommi, the architect of heavy metal, lost his fingertips in a factory accident, which forced him to downtune and play slower, which accidentally birthed the sound of doom metal. But he didn't stop there. He created heavy metal with just 3 measly chords. Paranoid is a testament to the fact that sometimes the simplest ideas are the most devastating. Its relentless driving pace and simple, powerful structure made it an instant classic and a staple of early metal. It's raw, urgent, and the sound of the 70s saying, "We're done with flower power. Give me something heavy." Black Sabbath didn't just play this riff, they weaponized it. However, Paranoid was written in just 20 minutes because the label demanded a single. The riff's simplicity wasn't laziness, it was a matter of survival. And that urgency? Ozzy Osbourne famously recorded the vocals in one take while hungover. This riff became the band's anthem, proving that a single song could change a genre. Easter egg. The riff's rhythm actually mirrors the Morse code for SOS. Was it a coincidence, or a desperate cry for help from the godfathers of metal? Layla. Derek and the Dominos, 1970. The riff of a broken heart. Eric Clapton poured his broken heart into this riff, and you can feel every single damn note bleed. Inspired by his unrequited love for Patty Boyd, Clapton turned his raw heartbreak into sound. This riff doesn't just play, it aches, it weeps, it screams. It's love, obsession, and desperation, all wrapped up in 6 strings. Every time it hits, it's like watching someone fall apart in real time. And somehow, you want to feel that hurt too. Damn, it hurts so good. But the story behind the music is even more compelling. Clapton's heartbreak riff was only half the masterpiece. Duane Allman, another guitar god, improvised his iconic slide guitar counterpoint on the spot, turning a great riff into an unforgettable duet. The legendary piano outro? That was recorded at 3 a.m. in a haze of whiskey and despair. Here's the dark twist. Patty Boyd, the woman the song was written for, later said the song terrified her. It felt like being stalked, she admitted. The very riff that captured the pain of love and desperation was, for her, a haunting and terrifying reminder of a love she couldn't return. Iron Man, Black Sabbath, 1970. The riff of the apocalypse. Tony Iommi didn't just write a riff, he summoned a monster. That slow, earth-shaking stomp in Iron Man sounds like the end of the world walking toward you in slow motion. Down-tuned and dripping with menace, it's more than just heavy, it's mythic. This is the sound of metal boots crushing cities, of a giant stomping through the ruins of civilization. When Ozzy wails over it, it's not just music, it's a prophecy. Iommi's riff became the blueprint for doom metal and birthed an entire subgenre that worships at the altar of weight and dread. And yes, Sabbath earned 2 spots on this list. Deal with it. The riff's genius wasn't just in its heaviness, it was in its cinematic quality. The Iron Man comic book didn't even exist yet. The lyrics were about a time-traveling cyborg. The sludgy tempo, which gives the riff its crushing power, was inspired by the slow, grinding sound of factory machinery from Iommi's blue-collar days. In a fun twist, the first take of the riff was actually faster, but it sounded weak. It was only after they slowed it down that it became truly skull-crushing. The legacy of this riff is undeniable. Its DNA is in every sludge, stoner, and doom band that came after. Even non-metal artists have covered it, proving its timeless impact. Smoke on the Water, Deep Purple, 1972. The 4-note secret handshake. 4 notes, that's it. Ritchie Blackmore took 4 simple notes and gave the world a riff that's basically rock and roll's secret handshake. Your uncle who hates rock knows it. Your dog probably hums it. Every kid who's ever touched a guitar has played it. Badly, at first, but still. Those parallel fourths aren't just a riff, they're a rite of passage. And when they hit, suddenly you're in a smoky bar in '72, headbanging with strangers who instantly feel like family. Deep Purple didn't just write a song, they started a brotherhood. Here's the wild part. Ritchie Blackmore hated this riff at first. When he played it in rehearsal, he thought it was too simple. Just 4 notes bouncing between G and C sharp. But when Deep Purple jammed it live, the crowd went absolutely nuts. The riff's genius? It's indestructible. Play it clean, play it distorted, play it on a kazoo, it still works. The song was born from reality. Montreux Casino burned during a Zappa show, and the smoke on the water was real. Studio hack. The iconic tone? Blackmore used a Stratocaster through a Marshall stack, but the real magic was in his right-hand muting. He played so hard, his pick was known to break strings mid-take. It's a testament to the raw energy that made this simple riff a rock anthem. Walk This Way. Aerosmith. 1975, the riff that strutted across genres. That funky syncopated strut of Walk This Way is pure Boston swagger, with a chicken scratch rhythm that's got more attitude than a New York taxi driver. It doesn't just rock, it struts, moonwalking through dive bars and turning every hallway into a catwalk. Here's the shocker. Joe Perry didn't actually write it. Drummer Joey Kramer did. He was messing around with a funk beat, and Perry, a blues rock guitarist, matched it note for note. The riff's secret weapon is that it's disgustingly syncopated, a rock guitarist's attempt to play like James Brown, and it works flawlessly. This fusion is why it became so much more than just a hard rock song. And just when you thought it couldn't get cooler, the riff took on a life of its own. In 1986, producer Rick Rubin forced Run DMC to listen to the riff without any vocals. They hated it at first, but it became a hip-hop anthem that launched both of their careers into the stratosphere and invented the entire rap rock genre. Gear geekery. Perry's raw, punchy tone came from a Les Paul Jr., plugged into a modified Fender Twin. No distortion pedal, just pure amp grit. This riff truly has legs for days, and it walks with purpose. Back in Black, AC/DC, 1980. The riff, written for a dead man. The Young brothers, Angus and Malcolm, never bothered with frills, they brought knockouts. That GED riff in Back in Black hits like a thunderbolt from down under, sharp as a switchblade, and tougher than a pissed-off kangaroo. It's not just a riff, it's a resurrection. Written in the wake of Bon Scott's death, this was AC/DC clawing their way out of the grave, flipping off the Reaper and taking over the world. It's rock and roll at its rawest, primal, cocky, and loud enough to wake the neighbors in hell. This was their first shot after Bon was gone, and they didn't just swing, they smashed it out of the park. Malcolm treated rhythm guitar like a lead. Every chord was a jab to the jaw. And the genius? It's in the gaps, those silences between G and E, like the eye of a storm, just long enough to make the next hit explode. Studio nugget. Producer Mutt Lange made them record it over 50 times until it was mathematically perfect. Angus later joked, "We were one take away from tossing Mutt out the window." But the result? A riff so massive it became the anthem of every stadium, bar, and backyard barbecue. Even your grandma who listens to polka knows this riff. It doesn't ask for your attention. It owns it. Sweet Child O' Mine, Guns N' Roses, 1987. The riff that was a joke, until it changed rock forever. Slash wasn't trying to write a masterpiece. He was just fooling around. No plan, no pressure, picking out a silly melody backstage. It sounded like a circus tune. He even called it clown music. But Izzy Stradlin stopped him and said, That's not stupid. That's brilliant. And just like that, a joke became a legend. Those shimmering arpeggios on Slash's Les Paul don't just sound beautiful, they feel like something deeper. They hit you in the heart. It's the sound of first love, heartbreak, and everything in between. Sweet, aching, nostalgic. The kind of melody that makes you pause without even knowing why. It's not just a riff, it's an emotion with strings. At first, Axl Rose hated it. Too soft, he said, too pretty. But then he started writing lyrics about his girlfriend, Erin Everly, and suddenly the clown riff turned into Sweet Child O' Mine, a power ballad that would define a generation. Hidden detail. That intro riff, it's way harder to play than it sounds. Most guitarists cheated, simplify the pull-offs. Not Slash. He nailed it clean in one take, and rumor has it, he was drunk. Pure instinct, pure emotion. That's what made it magic. From joke to anthem, from backstage goof to rock immortality. That's the kind of lightning Guns N' Roses bottled in 1987. Enter Sandman. Metallica 1991. The lullaby that killed hair metal. This wasn't just a riff, it was a death sentence with groove. When Enter Sandman dropped in 1991, glam metal was drowning in its own hairspray. The scene was all glitter, guitar acrobatics, and fake danger. Then this riff hit. Simple, dark, and relentless. It wasn't fast, it wasn't flashy, but it crept in, like a lullaby from hell, and it never left. That E minor chug isn't complicated, but it's unstoppable. It sounds like bedtime if bedtime meant demons and blackouts. Kirk Hammett's wah-drenched solo? Inspired by the good, the bad, and the ugly. But the real genius? The space between the notes. That silence hits harder than most guitarists' full solos. Sandman didn't just sell 30 million records, it buried the 80s. It humiliated glam. It made metal feel real again. Raw, primal, and built for the masses. This wasn't about spandex, it was about sound. And suddenly, even people who said they hated heavy music were headbanging in their cars. Enter Sandman didn't just open Metallica's Black Album, it opened the floodgates. And what came next? Nirvana, grunge, the end of an era. But the shot that started it, that riff. There you go, rock family. The 13 riffs that didn't just change music, they changed how we feel music. These are the anthems that made us pick up guitars, crank our stereos, and live a little louder. Which riff makes your soul catch fire? Drop it in the comments, and if you think I missed a banger, let's fight about it, respectfully of course. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and keep the faith, because at WoodsRock, we don't just play rock and roll, we live it. Stay loud, stay proud, and never turn it down.